Boy, do I have an interesting dream for you here. Playing guitar in a hotel lobby. This is our finale. Well, I shouldn't say finale because we're going to go on and on interpreting dreams. And as long as I'm around creating these online classes, I will have dreams that I will be able to demonstrate for you how they have significance and meaning and message to them. This dream I picked because of the great ways that it has everything in it. Every point basically that we've hit in all these hours of previous lessons, there is something in this dream which will be able to show those lessons in action. So we're going to walk through the steps, the D3 steps with this dream. First, I need to tell you about the dream. So let's get to it. I want to say first, though, that not every dream has this level of detail and story cohesion. Sometimes your dreams are fragmented. Sometimes you're just pulling out bits of imagery. You're not remembering where the dream started. You don't remember exactly how it ended. It is not this neat package all tied up with a little red ribbon bow like this dream. But even with those dreams, write them down, analyze the story, check out the symbolism, see what you can make of it. In my own dream life, I only have these really big story-like dreams every once in a while. And a lot of times, basically most mornings, what I'm pulling out are, 15, 30-second segments of dream. So work with any little bit of, dream material that you're given. There's a lot that it can tell you. Of course, when you get a dream like this one. All right, let me tell you about the dream. I will read off the screen here. I'm older than I am now, in a hotel lobby, and a bored employee watches over musical instruments that belong to a famous rock group that stayed at the hotel the night before. There's a beautiful guitar, and even though I don't know how to play it, I ask the employee if I can try. You should, he replies. So I pick up the guitar and begin playing exactly what I feel inside, and it comes out perfectly. I close my eyes, and somehow the guitar becomes my teenage daughter, even though I don't really have a daughter. She and the guitar are one, and her shirt is the same blue color as the guitar. She tells me she's sorry she died. It wasn't suicide, but she was responsible for her own death. I tell her it's all right, and she didn't know, but she was pregnant when she died and would have made a wonderful mother. Finally, my fingers are too sore to play anymore, and I put the guitar back after a tearful goodbye to my daughter, telling the employee that there's something special about the guitar. He replies, "It's the player that makes it special." Interesting dream, huh? I think it's a fabulous story. There's so much that it says in what might have been 90 seconds of dream time, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Either way, you have a short story here that would make many top flight authors, novelists, envious. There's so much that the dream says. And as you're going to see here in the coming slides, it all ties together and every detail says something about the dreamer. Now, we know that dreams are trying to teach you something and that we should approach all dreams with that question in mind. I will reveal this at the end of this lesson. What is the dream trying to teach? First, we need to know what it really says. We need to translate it. It is presented to us in the language of symbolism and as a story. So let's translate it step by step from the top. First, though, what do you think it means? Take a moment, pause this video if you need to, go back and review the description. What do you think this dream means? What can you pull out of it based off of what I have taught you so far? And maybe you have some tricks of your own and some tips of your own that you can apply, and I can learn some things from you. So go ahead and do that. I'm going to move on to the next slide. We're going to take this step by step. Step one, story elements. What are the story elements of this dream? Well, the setting is a hotel lobby. Hotels are places we stay when between places. We're not at home. We're not at, a relative's house. We are, or a friend's house, staying the night or whatever. You go to a hotel and stay at a hotel when you are between places. And places in a dream can mean places in life. Now, this is one of the things that I note right away as I approach a dream like this. If it takes place in a hotel, I've got a set of references in my head already that help me to understand the symbolism. I encounter symbolic uses that I haven't even in 25 years of studying this subject, encountered. But most of the time, you can use my dream interpretation dictionary to look up these settings and other symbols that you find in dreams and get some ideas about them. So that was the first thing that came to mind for me, is that the dreamer might be between places in his life. But also story analysis. Notice the atmosphere of waiting for something to happen, that opening scene. I'm going to get back to this in a moment. What I'm doing now is I'm giving you clues that help you to see my thought processes as I initially approach a dream, this dream, or a dream like it. So, waiting for something to happen. What does that say about the dreamer? I find that the atmosphere of a dream can express mood in tone and the just sort of general atmosphere of a person's life. So in this case, I do know that the atmosphere that's created in this opening scene of waiting for something to happen reflects on the dreamer. And again, I have to get to this, but I want to show you my thought processes and some of the things that I notice as I go through a dream like this. I'm taking it from the top, I'm working my way through, and as I get to certain parts of the dream, then there are things that are going to come to mind for me as possibilities. And since I've already worked through this dream, I know that these possibilities I'm showing you are going to tie together. There are other possibilities that I would have generated in this process that I would rule out later because I don't find other supporting details, or the dreamer doesn't resonate with the ideas that I throw out at him. Now, characters, they are a story element. And the dreamer is the main character in the story, and the employee and daughter are supporting actors. So if you take my course on dream characters, there's hours worth of material there, and we go into great depth about dream characters. And one of the things that I teach you to do is to really study the roles that characters play and how they are presented in the story. Like, you can be in a dream without being the main actor. You could be an observer. You could be like, hey, it's a buddy movie and you're the buddy, and somebody else, some other character, is in the spotlight or is the one who's driving the action or is the focus of the story. In this case, really, the dreamer is the focus of the story, and that is important to notice for story analysis. Also, the employee and daughter are supporting actors. They are playing supporting roles. They are helping the main actor to play out various aspects of the story, and that tells us something too. So I'm going to get to that, but these are observations that I'm making as I'm going through the dream. What does the dreamer see about himself in the employee and daughter? That is a very, very important question with any dream character. What do you see about yourself in your dream characters? Now, we know that sometimes dream characters can be like surrogates for people that you know. You know sometimes that they can be objective representations of people you know. You know that dream characters can symbolize something that has nothing to do really with a person. It could be a concept, an idea, a subject. Uh, that it's not human, it's walking, it's talking, but it's a symbol. So that's important to know as you approach dream characters. In this case, it is a symbol, but the first, I don't want to call it a rule, the first guideline for understanding dream characters is this question: what do you see about yourself in them? So in this case, what does the dreamer see about himself and the employee and the daughter? That is really the question that is going to open up the dream for interpretation. But I have to get to that. I got to set the stage a little more here. Symbols. Okay, so we've been through setting, the setting, we've been through the characters, now the symbols. Well, the guitar is a pretty obvious one. And notice that there is an action associated with the guitar. And if you go back to my symbolism lecture, you know that action with a symbol helps to define what that symbol actually means. So the action of playing guitar is a modifier, and the symbol will be defined through that action. I'm previewing that for you. Also notice the color blue. As you analyze the story, you notice that he says that the shirt that his daughter wears and the color of the guitar are the same color blue. Color tends to express emotional dynamics. So keep that in mind. In this case, as in most cases, the color is expressing emotional dynamics. Sometimes color is used more to like set the scene. It can convey really more mood and tone, like it was a dark, stormy night or something. So everything is in shades of like gray and black, or charcoal. But, so the dream is conveying a mood that way, or a tone. Sometimes, though, the color, actually most of the time, color is somehow associated with emotion, and that's going to come into play. I'm going to show you here a little bit later. Okay, narrative components. We're still at step one. Well, we notice that there is an action at the beginning of the dream of the dreamer asking permission to play the guitar that he sees in the lobby. And then he plays the guitar, and then the guitar transforms into the daughter. He has a conversation with the daughter, and then he makes a statement at the end about the guitar being special. These are all actions. Now, notice he plays the guitar even though he's never played one. And he does that perfectly when he expresses his feelings. He plays guitar perfectly when he expresses his feelings through it. He's never played guitar before, okay? And then notice that his conversation with his daughter ends when he can no longer play. He says his fingers are too sore. He's got to put down the guitar, and that's when he has the tearful goodbye with his daughter. Ooh. Okay, so story analysis. Note that. It's all going to come together here in just a moment. Now, notice the employee's statement in reply. That struck me right away as I first read through this dream. It's the player that makes it special. As a guitar player, I know this to be true. My first guitar teacher could rip through any guitar player in the world, basically. You could name the player and he would start ripping through the hardest passages that player had ever put out on record. And he did it on like this old beat up guitar with a relatively cheap amplifier, and you'd have these guys with these $2,000 guitars who could not hold a candle to that guy. And it was because there was something special about him as a guitar player. He was extraordinarily talented. Okay, so let's move on. But that statement, that really jumped out at me. Notice another reaction. The dreamer sees the band's instruments sitting unused and wants to play the guitar. You have two things to notice: unused and his desire to play. He reacts to that, and what does he do? He says, "Hey, can I play that guitar?" Opportunity knocks, and he takes it. So there's something there that is expressing through the dreamer's desires, his feelings. Reaction is very closely tied with a person's true thoughts and feelings. So notice that he is reacting to the sight of the guitar by wanting to play it. What does that say about his feelings? We'll get to that in a moment. Okay, here's a question for you. Is he following a script or given a choice? We know that sometimes dreams have you follow a script all the way through, that you as an actor in the story will follow that script. Sometimes, though, the dream creates an outline of a story and allows you to choose your own adventure. So, does the dreamer have a choice when he sees the guitar? I think the answer is yes. And I think that it makes the reaction even more important. At that point, he could have looked at the guitar and said, "Oh, I've never played guitar before," or, "Hey, the band will probably be back soon, and I shouldn't be touching their stuff," or whatever. He could have reacted a variety of different ways to that scene, but inside he knows there's something. The dream put it in front of his path, knowing how he would react to that, or at least having a really good idea of how he would react to seeing that beautiful guitar sitting there unused. Now, another narrative component is resolution, and resolution is going to become clear after steps 2 and 3. In step 1, we are like detectives who want to gather the facts, or investigative journalists who need to know the who, what, when, where, and why, so that we can go to step 2, where we take those facts, the story elements and narrative components of the story, and we interpret the symbolism and analyze the story. So now we are at step 2, and here is where our evidence, we will be able to test it and get more clues from it. First, analyze the story. The opening scene of a dream is often where the subject or main idea of it is found. And in this opening scene, what we see is the suggestion that the dreamer is looking for permission to do something creative. That is a simple way of summarizing what we see in the opening scene. The dreamer he's in a hotel lobby, he sees the band's instruments, and he asks the employee if it's okay to play the guitar that jumps out at him, that he notices. And the employee says yes. So, in a real simple summary, that's the idea, looking for permission to do something creative. It's kind of obvious when you step back and summarize that opening scene. Once you have enough experience with story analysis, these sorts of things will jump out at you. The hotel is the setting that sets the stage. So we need to understand what the hotel symbolizes and how it is used in the story. In a previous slide, I mentioned that the symbolism of the hotel shows that the dreamer is between personal places in his life. Looking at it from a story perspective, you could see that hotel setting as summing up the dreamer's present life as waiting for something to happen. See Hotel in the Dream Interpretation Dictionary to get more ideas about the symbolism. Now we want to look at the dreamer's role. He is the main actor in the story, and he is given a role to play in the story. How could we summarize the role that he plays? What I see is he is a sort of tourist who stumbles upon a great secret. He's in a hotel, after all, and hotels and tourists go hand in hand. The dream does not present him as a tourist. This idea is drawn from my experience with other stories, movies that I've seen. I'm thinking of Romancing the Stone. In that story, there is a tourist who stumbles upon a great secret, which is this fantastic jewel, and then the rest of the story revolves around that simple idea. In this story, what you see is the dreamer is just sort of in the scene accidentally. There's no setup for that scene. It just opens, and there is the dreamer in the hotel lobby, and everything proceeds forward from there. So he is like an accidental tourist, and the great secret is that he has this tremendous creative ability with the guitar that he didn't know that he had. So he stumbles upon that secret. And once you have enough experience with storytelling, this way of summarizing the dream and the story of the dream really jumps out. It'll come to you with practice if it doesn't jump out at you yet either. But the point is, notice the role that the character plays, summarize that role, and then look at the rest of the dream for details that point toward that role, the way that we're interpreting it as being the correct way of interpreting it. The employee, as I mentioned earlier, is another part of the story for us to understand. He is a supporting actor in the dream story. And the primary thing that we see off the bat is that he is bored. And we're going to find out in step 3 that the dreamer is bored with his work. In step 3, we reflect on our waking lives to see how the dream could be connecting with waking life. So to say that an employee is bored, it raises a really obvious question. Is the dreamer bored with his work? Look up work in the Dream Interpretation Dictionary. It's going to give you this very wide variety of ways that it can be used as symbolism. And I'll return to this detail a little bit later in another slide. For now, what we're doing, of course, is we are looking for ways that the different details of the dream express symbolism and help to tell the story. The daughter. Here's another character that we can just simply summarize what role that she plays in the story. And what I see is that she represents something that got away from the dreamer. In the story, she is presented as being his long lost, or actually she died long ago. So that asks you, it's in a simple way of summarizing that is that she's something that got away, and it happened in a previous time of the dreamer's life. Those are clues that when we get to step 3, we're going to see how they fit into the picture, if they fit at all. This is a good time to mention that we are just brainstorming. Because I know what the dream means, I'm not taking you through the full brainstorming process. There will be other ideas that are generated during this process that won't lead you to the interpretation of the dream. But going through the process is very important. And sometimes the details that come out during step 2, the ideas that you generate, they won't seem to fit right away into the dream. You won't see it come together into this cohesive narrative. But upon reflection, you might find that some of those ideas express the deeper layers of meaning to the dream. The daughter is something that brings out his creative expression. Notice in the dream that he picks up the guitar, he starts playing it, he's playing it beautifully, and then the guitar morphs into his daughter. When that transformation process happens, we know that the guitar and the daughter are expressing an idea. And what I see is that it's basically creative expression. That clue is going to help us as we go through step 2 into step 3. Now, the daughter's backstory is important. Watch out for dream characters that are given names and backstory. In this case, we get a backstory about the daughter, and it is important for understanding the dream. It is a detail that fits into this big picture. In the dream, she is presented as she was pregnant when she died, and she is responsible for it. So the question becomes, what does that say about the dreamer? Because we know the likelihood is that the dream character is something from the dreamer's inner life that is personified in the form of that dream character. So we will need to get to that more in step 3. I'm setting you up for it right now. We have some more elements and components that we can interpret and analyze. We see an action of the dreamer asking the employee permission to play the guitar, and I think that it means that the dreamer is giving himself permission to add more creativity to his work and his life. You see in the employee's reaction an affirmative answer. The employee says, "Yeah, you should pick up the guitar and play it." There is a deeper message to that, which I've already hinted at here. He's asking himself, through the form of the employee, for permission to add more creativity. It can be to his work, because the employee is, the idea of employee and work go together. But from reading my entry about work, that work as a detail in a dream can expand the idea of work. It's not just what you do for a living. Work is anything that you work at, and creative processes and endeavors are things that you work at. So now we have another action to analyze. The transformation of the guitar into the daughter and back shows that they are one and the same. Anytime that you see this sort of action happen in a dream, you have an immediate idea about it that comes to mind, that the dream is really revealing that the two are one and the same, or that there is a deeper layer to the symbolism in the story that is then revealed by what the thing in the dream transforms into. So the guitar transforms into the daughter, and that tells us that they are one and the same, and they are brought together by a central idea. I've already hinted at it. I'm going to go into more detail in the next slide. The action of playing the guitar is basically creative. So if you know that the guitar and the daughter are one and the same symbolically, then since playing guitar is a creative act, we look at the daughter and say, she has something to do with the dreamer's creativity. And basically, the daughter symbolizes his creativity. Opposite gender characters shown as being personally close to the dreamer are often symbols for creativity. Look up anima, A-N-I-M-A, and animus. They're right next to each other as entries in the Dream Interpretation Dictionary. And these are very deep personal expressions of the dreamer's inner lives, really their deepest inner being. And I have found over and over again that opposite gender characters that are shown as having a close relationship with the dreamer are symbols for creativity. In this case, it's a daughter, it could be a lover, it could be a spouse, and it works both ways. This dreamer is male, but when females dream about these very close male characters, they often, those characters often symbolize the dreamer's creativity. So now our story analysis, when we return to the backstory about the daughter and we understand that she symbolizes the dreamer's creativity, we have a great clue to why the dream gives her backstory. If she symbolizes his creativity and she died back long ago in the dreamer's life, then what it suggests is that something about the dreamer's creativity also died in the sense of it receded. It was a bigger priority in his life back then. And then, life happens. He basically, we're going to find out in step 3 that he had to make choices about his career. He made the best choices he could with the information he had at the time. He went into a field of work that is inherently creative, but he found that the reality of working in that field meant that he didn't have much time to express himself creatively. Okay, cat's out of the bag, but I need you to understand this detail. So around the age of the daughter, she's presented as being a teenager, but she's also pregnant. So later teens, okay? Around that time of the dreamer's life, he was pregnant with creative energy, with the desire for creative outlet and expression. Now we look at her backstory. She died. Well, it's not saying that the creativity in the dreamer died. It just means that it receded in importance in his life. It wasn't on purpose. It's just how life unfolded. And remember that the dream makes a point of telling her backstory as it wasn't suicide, but she was responsible for her own death. Symbolically and story-wise, there is some very deep connections with the dreamer and the way that his life unfolded. And it's all shown in that backstory. Now, we know to look for discrepancies with reality as we analyze a story. Those discrepancies are places for us to focus in. And the dreamer is not a parent. He does not have a daughter. So this dream character is purely imaginary. And when dream characters are purely imaginary, we have a rule of thumb that says the source of the dream character is coming from the dreamer's inner life. On the other hand, when characters are portrayals and they draw in details from a dreamer's outer life, what the rule of thumb is that the dream is telling you that it is sourcing the story and the symbolism from the dreamer's outer life, at least in some way. We know from that dreams like to mix outer and inner life and pull from both. But in this case, we know that this is really a story about the dreamer's inner life, that at least this character is an expression of his inner life, and it rules out other possibilities, such as she's a surrogate character for someone that the dreamer knows. That's not, if the character is purely imaginary, then it's probably not being sourced in any sort of way from the dreamer's outer life. So we know that she symbolizes his creativity, and this detail, this discrepancy with reality backs that as a conclusion because creativity is part of a person's inner life. It can be expressed outwardly in the things that we do, but the source of it is coming from inner life. Here's another really interesting discrepancy with reality that jumps out at us as we analyze the story. The dreamer has never played guitar, yet when he picks up the dream guitar, he plays it expressively and perfectly. What that says is it doesn't matter what he puts his creativity into as long as he puts his feelings into it. So he could start, he could take from this dream, hey, maybe I should play the guitar, or maybe any of the other instruments that are there. It's an entire, in the story, it shows the band and all their instruments are sitting there. But that might be a little bit too literal of a reading of the dream. What we're really seeing here through the action of him being able to pick up a guitar and express himself through it and really pull from his feelings and emotions is that he just needs to express his creativity and put his feelings into it. So, ladies and gentlemen, once more with feeling. And that little phrase there very much applies to what the underlying idea of this dream is, which is that the dreamer wants to put more feeling into his creative work. Let's continue analyzing, but we're going to get to step 3 now. And we're going to pull all of this stuff together. First, context. The dreamer is a male professional who works in video production. His job is creative, but he doesn't have time to put much self-expression into it. So he went into a field that he thought was going to give him an outlet for his creative expression, and it turned into basically almost assembly line type of output. He's given these projects, assignments to do as a video editor and producer, and he doesn't really have time to put any sort of self-expression into it. And this lather, rinse, repeat style of his work life is, you can see that he's getting bored with it. So the context of his life is now explaining the details that we noted in step 1, and then how we interpreted and analyzed them in step 2. Context of the dreamer is he is starving for an outlet for his creativity, something with more self-expression. It's seen clearly in his reaction of wanting to play the guitar, then doing it beautifully. He picks up that guitar and he starts playing it. Everything comes out beautifully. The guitar morphs into his daughter. They have this, tearful sort of reunion. And then when he is done playing the guitar, the daughter disappears. That's a big clue right there. That everything here in that scene is really coming back to the dreamer finding more self-expression and putting more feeling into his work. And whether he can find that at work as a video producer, or whether it means that he starts coming home from work and doing things that could be completely different from video production or making music, that's up to him to determine. But the bottom line is that he needs to find this creative expression. It was something that receded or died in him long ago, and he's looking for it again. Connect the dots. This is the sub-step 2 of step 3. And when we connect the dots, we're looking for the central idea around which all the other details of the dream constellate. And what we see in this dream is use of creativity. That is the central idea. And then all of the other details of the dream constellate around it. When the dreamer reflects on his life, Now that he has all of these clues and he understands the symbolism and the way that the story is told, he can look back on his life and, like the hotel employee, he can see that he's been feeling dry and bored at work. So he can take that information now and do something with it. So at one time in his life, around the daughter's age, roughly, he was pregnant with creativity. Pregnancy is a creative act, and that detail is a story marker based on the symbolism. The story marker is something that is there in the dream without playing a central role in it, and it expresses symbolically an idea or a subject or a concept or something like that. Let's just say idea. And so I think that it's very clear here. The dream makes a point of giving the backstory about the daughter, that she was pregnant when she died, that it wasn't suicide, but she was responsible for her own death. That says something about the dreamer. And if you look at pregnancy as simply meaning that it is an act of creation, then the fact that the daughter died while she was pregnant basically says that the dreamer went off in another direction that did not allow him to bring this thing in him to life. He is a deeply creative and expressive person. And as his life unfolded, he was not able to find a way of allowing that creativity and expression to really have an outlet in his life. There is an outlet, but it turns out that video production, the realities of working in that field, is not giving him everything that he needs. So reflect on your life. And when this dreamer reflects on his life, what we see here is a question. Is it too late? He's already well into adult life, and a change of career isn't likely. So what does he do with this information? How does he find resolution? So in the big picture, what we see here is a story about desire to use creativity at work and in general. The details of the dream, all of them connect in that big picture. And remember that as you interpret a dream and you get to step 3 especially, what you're looking for is the way that all of the details connect together. You know that every detail is purposeful. The dream chooses every detail for a reason, and that they all connect. If there is a detail that dangles in the sense that it doesn't fit into that big picture, you know that either there's something about that detail that you're not understanding, or that you're on the wrong track. And at this point, you would be looking for other ways that you could look at the details of the story, view them symbolically and through the lens of story analysis, and see if they're pointing in another direction. There are also small pictures that fit into the big picture. This dream has 3 primary scenes, and each scene is a small picture. When you put the scenes together through the lens and view them through the lens of this dream is about the dreamer's unused creativity and the desire to find more creative self-expression in his life, you see that those small pictures fit into the big one. That's a good clue that we're on the right track. The dream shows the past, the dreamer's past, with the daughter character. Remember, in this story, it says she died long ago. So long ago means the dreamer's past in this case. It shows the present in the dreamer's life through the employee character. The employee is bored with his work, and so that describes what's going on presently in the dreamer's life. And the dream also shows the possible future in the dreamer's deeply felt creative expression through the guitar. Basically, find an outlet for your self expression, do it with feeling, and you will resolve what this dream is pointing towards. It will give you what is missing from your life. And the dream sums it all up for you right here to see. So we see past, present, and future. And in big dreams, that is the classic structure of them. So now we have another very good indicator that we are on the right track in how we are interpreting this dream. Another part of story analysis that you can note about the structure, the story structure here, is that the dream has an opening, it has a body in scene 2, it has a climax in scene 3. And again, that is classic storytelling structure for dreams. This is a big dream. We have a lot of dream content that we accumulate throughout our lives. Even just in an average night, you can have 2 hours of REM stage dreaming out of every 8 hours of sleep. REM is when we have the most vivid and intense dreams. And then we have these week in review, month in review dreams. They can be year or lifetime in review dreams. And they are what I call big dreams because they stand out from all of the other dream content as being particularly important. So this, knowing that it's a big dream, we know to look for the story structure of showing past, present, and future. Because in these fully formed big dreams, you will almost always see references to past, present, and future. We also are looking for the source of the dream. We know that the plurality of dreams speak to what's happening in the body, and then they go to heart, emotions, then they go to mind, and then they go to spirit. And as a general rule of thumb, the plurality of your dreams will be about your body, and then the least amount of dreams that you will have, the minority of them, will be about spirit. And in this case, in spirit, and what I mean by that is the deepest inner being of the person. And that is where this dream is coming from. His deepest inner being is saying, hey, you've got this untapped potential in you. You've got more in you creatively and with self-expression than what is coming out of you. And this untapped potential is something that you really want. So his deepest inner being is saying, find that self-expression, find ways of using your creativity more. So what is the moral of the story? The story is a parable. It teaches. So what I see here is a story. The moral of the story is it's never too late to start with something as worthy as creative self-expression. This conclusion is backed by another detail from the story. And the very first thing he says about the dream is it opens up showing him as older than he is now. And it's a way of saying, okay, if you get to that point where you are older and you still have not found your creative self-expression, or you're not using it in the ways that you want to use it, then that's when it might be too late. But right now you still have an opportunity. And if you learn from this dream and apply what you learn to your life, well, it's not too late yet. There's also another idea, which is try something new. In the dream, he tries playing guitar, even though he's never played it before, and things work out really well. And so I think you can summarize that as It doesn't matter what creative expression he chooses. Just choose something. What an interesting story, huh? I think this is a fabulous dream. And it's also a great example for showing the steps of D3 and how you break down the dream, interpret the symbolism and analyze the story, and then understand all of that in context and how it all connects together and then connects with the dreamer's life. In this case, it tells a very deep story about what's going on with him. So I hope that this has enlightened you, or it's made everything that we've talked about so far more concrete. You won't always find dreams with this level of detail, but you will be able to go through this process with a dream, whether it's a 5 or 10-second snippet of dream, or it is like this one where it tells a complete story. And with those snippets, you can go through the same process of noting whether they are, the story elements, what are the settings and characters and symbols, you noting the action, reaction, and resolution, the narrative components, and then decoding the symbolism of them and analyzing what as much story as you have. There's still ways that you can analyze it. And then you go to step 3, you pull it all together, understand it in context, and reflect on your life. And at that point, you should be getting ideas about what the dream means. And most importantly, what it is pointing toward about you in your life that you can learn from, that you can take from the dream what you learn and apply it to your life. We will continue interpreting dreams. I will give you more examples. For now, this is the primary one that we have to understand the D3 system. It's a fascinating dream, and I hope that you enjoyed learning about it. So, see you for the next lesson. Thank you.